The air was quiet that evening until flashing red lights from the gate camera caught everyone's attention. A tall man in a dark suit stood before his own mansion gates, calm but firm. Yet, to the surprise of everyone watching, the Homeowners Association security refused to let him in. "You don't belong here," they said, dismissing his ID like it was a joke. The man didn't argue. He only stood there, his jaw tightening, eyes holding years of discipline. Neighbors peeked from windows, curious about the confrontation. Whispers grew. How could someone be blocked from entering the very estate he built? As the minutes dragged on, the guard's tone sharpened, confidence rising from the authority of the HOA's rules. But behind the man's silence was a storm. He wasn't just a homeowner. He was someone whose life had been trained in the shadows, someone who knew patience was often sharper than anger. No one at the gate realized yet, they weren't denying entry to an ordinary man. They were provoking someone with connections that stretched far beyond suburban fences. The guard crossed his arms, smug, as if victory was already his. "Call whoever you want," he said, "you're not coming through." The men didn't flinch. He tapped his phone once and put it away, his silence speaking louder than any argument. Behind the walls of that mansion, his family waited, unaware of the scene unfolding outside. Neighbors started gathering, recording on their phones, their feeds buzzing with disbelief. "That's his house," one whispered. "How can they deny him?" Yet the HOA board member nearby smirked, determined to make an example of him. But what they failed to see was the calmness in his breathing. Years of elite service had taught him to read every detail, the arrogance in the guard's stance, the nervous tapping of the board member's pen, the growing tension in the crowd. He knew this wasn't just about rules. It was about respect. And within minutes, the air shifted. Engines roared in the distance, headlights piercing the night. The sound wasn't random, it was synchronized. His call had been answered. 4 black SUVs pulled up, smooth and precise, doors opening in unison. From them stepped men and women dressed in plain clothes, but their posture revealed everything. Shoulders square, eyes scanning, movements crisp, these weren't ordinary friends. They were his crew, bonded through years of operations no one dared to speak about. The crowd gasped as one of them approached the gate, barely saying a word, only flashing a subtle hand signal. Instantly, the energy changed. The smug guard's confidence faltered, his voice trembling as he repeated, "This is private property." The crew didn't need to raise their voices. Their presence alone told the story of loyalty, discipline, and silent strength. Every motion was intentional, every glance coordinated. They weren't here to fight, they were here to stand behind the men who had once led them through impossible missions. The guards' bravado shrank under the weight of their silence. For the first time, the HOA realized this wasn't a lone homeowner. This was a leader, and his people never left him standing alone. The board member stepped forward, trying to regain control, waving papers like they meant power. "We have rules here," he insisted, his tone shaky but louder, hoping volume could mask fear. But the crew didn't even blink. One woman among them leaned close to the men at the gate and whispered, "Say the word." He only shook his head, keeping his composure. His strength wasn't in anger, it was in restraint. The crowd of neighbors now shifted their loyalty, murmuring support. "This doesn't feel right," someone said. "He lives here." Phones streamed live, comments pouring in from thousands watching online. The HOA had intended to embarrass him, but instead they had exposed themselves. His crew stood like statues, creating a wall of silent protection. The air carried a different kind of authority now, not the fragile power of rules, but the undeniable respect earned in shadows of service. The man finally spoke, his voice low but steady, "You've made a mistake. And everyone here will see it." The guard's face paled. The board member's papers slipped from his hand, the night grew heavier as tension thickened. Police sirens echoed faintly, summoned not by the homeowner, but by the HOA trying to save face. Yet when the patrol cars pulled up, officers recognized him instantly. Salutes were exchanged, quiet words of respect spoken. The crowd gasped, this wasn't just a man with a mansion. This was someone the city's protectors knew by name. The officers didn't question his identity, they questioned why he had been stopped at all. The guard stammered excuses, the board member tried twisting the story, but their words crumbled against the presence of truth. Meanwhile, the crew remained silent, scanning, calculating, their leader's calmness guiding their patience. For years, he had kept his past quiet, living a life of peace in a neighborhood that judged him by appearance. Now, that silence had been broken, not by choice, but by arrogance. The HOA wanted control. What they got instead was exposure, streamed across every phone, with thousands watching the tables turn in real time. By now, the neighborhood was alive with whispers and shifting opinions. People who once stood behind the HOA now questioned its motives. Why would they stop him? Why target him? The truth was unavoidable: their actions had nothing to do with rules, and everything to do with prejudice. The men didn't need to shout it, the evidence was on display. The officers spoke firmly, their words cutting through the night. He belongs here. This is his property. The guard's shoulders slumped. The board member's face burned red, realizing the weight of humiliation in front of neighbors and the world watching live. Still, the men didn't gloat. He turned only to his crew, nodding once, a silent signal that the mission was complete. They didn't cheer, didn't threaten, they simply stood, unified, letting the truth speak louder than any retaliation. In that moment, he proved something greater than ownership. He proved dignity always outlasts arrogance, and respect always rises when silence is broken. As the crowd began dispersing, the man finally stepped forward through his gates. His crew followed but kept their distance, ensuring the night ended without further conflict. Neighbors nodded respectfully, their earlier doubts erased by the truth laid bare before them. Even the officers lingered for a moment, offering words of gratitude for his past service, words that hinted at sacrifices few could ever understand. The HOA board member stood frozen, papers at his feet, realizing the reputation he once held had vanished. The guard avoided eye contact, shrinking into the shadows. But the men didn't look back. His focus remained forward, toward his family waiting inside. For him, the mansion was never about wealth, it was about the peace he earned after years of service. Tonight, that peace had been tested. But instead of breaking, it revealed his true strength: calm in the storm, dignity in the face of disrespect, and loyalty from those who would stand with him no matter what. His gates closed behind him, but the story had already reached far beyond the neighborhood, leaving a lesson no one could ignore.